My name is Marie. I am a medical family therapist and I work in a community health clinic in Yakima, Washington. Being a marriage and family therapist is a significant part of my identity. It's important to understand what your personal and professional identity is because they both come into play in the therapy room. To better manage biases and how one interacts with clients, the therapist must understand themselves first. So first, let's look at a doctoral level education. Marriage and family therapists have many reasons for deciding to undergo that level of a degree in the field. Woolley's 2010 article kind of gives us two reasons that a majority of students fall under. The first is an academic, like wanting to pursue more academic roles like professor, research, something like that. The second reason is to become a leader in the field. So to do supervision, to lead and manage programs, open their own kind of clinics, private practices, things like that. They believe that the PhD or doctoral level of education will further their career goals in the clinical setting. Personally, I am getting a PhD because I prefer to become a professor one day, so I fall under the academic kind of section of that. Woolley kind of further explains the difference between a master's and a PhD level education in three different sections. The first is theory. In the master's level education, master's level marriage and family therapists are taught the basics of all of the theories, enough skill to make them proficient in the therapy room. But the doctoral level education is really geared at understanding completely one or more theories and expanding on them or creating new ones, right? Furthering the field in that sense. The next section that he covers is clinical skill. So, according to Woolley, doctoral programs should not enhance not only the therapist's actual clinical in-session skills, but also finance, grant writing, supervision, program management. A lot of those things are not covered in master's level programs. That's something that is furthered with doctoral level education. The last section, which he talks about, is scholarship, which not only is the traditional education and research, right? So traditional research he talks about in this section, but also he points out the importance that doctoral level therapists tend to have is to look at themselves and look at their own effectiveness as a therapist, how to research themselves and push themselves to become better. Not saying that a master's level therapist can't do that, but that's kind of part of the development that happens in a PhD or a doctoral level program. So all of that together kind of says a lot to me that master's level clinicians are taught how to be a therapist, how to use what is already known and use it as effectively as possible. Doctoral level students are there, and doctorate level therapists are there to push that, to kind of evolve the profession as life and culture evolves around us. The doctoral level clinicians are there to fill holes where we haven't researched yet. Next, talking about client experience. What does an identity as a marriage and family therapist give to clients? And their experience is paramount to the process because they're the entire reason that we exist. Without clients, there would be no therapists. In my experience, there are three primary types of professionals that do therapy. There are others, but these are the ones that I see most often. I use Caldwell's 2019 kind of webpage out of his book that he published, which talks about the different kinds of mental health professionals, and his specific definitions are based on California law. So the idea, the general theory of each professional is the same nationwide, but the specific things that they can and cannot do may differ state to state. So just looking basically, first you have professional counselors. Those people are the individualized counselors. They look at problems as a deficiency in development or mood, things like that. It's a problem with the person. Marriage and family therapists are kind of the next chunk out. I look at it as like a dartboard personally. We're the middle. Marriage and family therapists look at it as a system, that person's symptoms are a system problem. Something is wrong in the system, a malfunction in their social context, or something similar to that. Looking out further, social workers. Social workers are the most similar to marriage and family therapists in my opinion, because they still kind of work with the system. They just kind of visualize it on a much broader system and focus a lot on resources. Either they're lacking financial, physical resources in life, or the individual resources that they have within themselves. So understanding the difference between the two is important to understanding what type of therapist you are and what education you should be going into, how you visualize problems, and therefore what is your professional identity. So looking personally, my own experience, in the current place I work in a medical clinic alongside with many different kinds of staff, but primarily doctors and nurse practitioners. In this setting, clients are used to being told what is wrong with them, what they need to do to fix it. However, we also serve a population that's has a high degree of poverty, high degree of homelessness, and a high degree of co-occurring disorders. My experience has shown me that approaching the issues that the client is being referred to me for from a systemic perspective decreases their resistance to therapy. Most of them come in thinking they're not going to like it, they've tried it before, or just kind of have an idea of what it's supposed to be like and they're not open. However, the difference in systemic perspective allows them to feel less blamed, allows them to feel less like I think that there's something wrong with them, because I don't. It allows me to better engage with my clients. It allows me to have a lower rate of no-shows and or cancellations than the other professionals that I work with. And it allows me to have to see more clients have a decrease in their symptom rate. But obviously my points of view, the perspectives need to be backed up by some kind of evidence or research. I did find a lot of resources when I was looking this up. However, one that sparked my interest was a research study in Germany done by von Südow, Beher, Retzlaff, and Schweitzer-Roders in 2007. And while it's a little bit old, I really like kind of how they put it together. First, they talk a lot about marriage and family therapy in Germany as not being looked at as a respected profession in mental health. They're fighting very constantly for rights as providers, which they don't have. And so they did this research study to show that systemic therapy shows just as high efficacy rates as individualized therapy. And so they took a research study they did their research with 24 participants with various mental health issues, including schizophrenia, depression, and eating disorders were the ones that they noted as noteworthy. Half of the participants did therapy with a systemic perspective. Half of the participants did research with an individualized perspective of therapy. And when comparing the results, the systemic participants had higher rates of success than the individualized perspective, and when they kept following up with them for 5 years, the systemic therapy participants had more long-lasting results, which was interesting to me. And And then now looking at why having a professional identity as a marriage and family therapist is important in regards to moving the profession forward. In Washington State, where I practice, systemic therapy is not as widely accepted as many other mental health professions, and cognitive behavioral therapy is pushed on systemic therapists, in my experience, because that's what insurance will pay for. On a national scale too, the fight to have marriage and family therapists accepted as Medicare providers is difficult, and something I believe that the nation of marriage and family therapists is working towards. I had a professor in my master's level coursework, and this always really stuck with me. Equate marriage and family therapy in the mental health field as kind of the punk rock of the profession, constantly fighting for validation. And he said, like, this is your job to further this. While he might be a little cynical, it always kind of stuck with me that that's important, that you need to remember that you're a marriage and family therapist, because that identity is so important to gaining respect and gaining that that field acceptance. I look at having a professional as a identity as a systemic therapist permeates literally everything that I do. I look at the context of the entire person, their story, and the people around them, but also work in a system of professionals that enable me to completely surround my client with all of the services that they need. Having a strong identity as a systemic therapist is an important part of furthering the profession for everyone. Sticking close to systemic roots and thinking when conceptualizing clients, furthering research, and working collaboratively with other professionals makes a difference in how the marriage and family therapy profession is perceived, and not only by the mental health community, but also the medical community, which I now in my job realize is more important. As a systemic therapist, I not only look at the system of the mind, system of relationships, but also the body system. I look at physical and mental health together, and that has changed the way that I have done therapy. And the integration is something that I can't imagine practicing therapy without now. So to end this video, I hope that you've gained some understanding of both doctoral level education in regards to marriage and family therapy, but also the importance of having a well-developed professional identity as a marriage and family therapist. Thank you.